Today I chat with Anna Robinson, a certified health and wellness coach with a huge passion for supporting mamas at all stages of their health journey. Anna shares with us her personal experience of postnatal depletion and burnout, which resulted in an autoimmune condition and a lot of unanswered questions. This led her on a path of research, nutritional studies, and desire to help mamas achieve optimal health and well-being throughout postpartum and motherhood. You will find that this conversation shares a lot of practical tools and hacks that even the busiest mama can implement into her day. Enjoy the episode. So today I speak with Anna, a mother of two, a certified nutritionist and wellness coach for mamas. Welcome, Anna. Lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited and honoured to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm really glad to have you. So I'd love to start with hearing maybe about your personal health and wellbeing journey and how this ignited your interest in the wellness space.
Sure, I love sharing my journey to where I've been because I think a lot of mums can probably resonate with where I've been and how I've felt throughout the years in motherhood. So I do love sharing this. My children at the moment are a bit older. They're in primary school, so they are 6 and almost 8. But when my daughter, probably about a year to a year and a half after my daughter was born, who's my second child, I started feeling a lot of symptoms of postnatal depletion and burnout. I also should add in there that my kids are very close in age, so they're only about 15 months apart. So I think for a long period of time, I was pregnant or breastfeeding, and I think I was, operating from that fight or flight mode for a little while until about a year and a half after my daughter was born. I really went into some serious postnatal depletion and burnout. I was experiencing those common symptoms of fatigue, exhaustion, brain fog, overwhelm, anxiety, mood swings. And then from a physical perspective, I was experiencing a lot of hormonal imbalances, hair loss, skin problems, bloating, weight fluctuations. And I sort of knew, okay, something's not right. But as mums, I think a lot of people can resonate this. We tend to just move on, forget about it, and keep going. And I thought, now's not the time. I'll deal with this when the kids are a bit older, which actually backfired on me. I ended up getting a nasty virus, which was super random. I woke up one morning and I had really bad fevers. I had body aches throughout my body and I had a really funny feeling in my mouth. And I just thought, oh, wow, I've never felt that before. I went to the mirror, I opened my mouth and my whole mouth was covered in blisters and ulcers. I sort of just, again, decided to keep going and figure it out later. And before I knew it, within 24 hours, I was really unwell. I couldn't eat any more food. And then within 48 hours, I couldn't even drink water. So I became severely dehydrated. And my husband, Michael, at the time was like, we need to get you to the hospital. So he drove me to the hospital and I thought I was going to be there for a couple of hours. They were going to give me some antibiotics or something like that. And I would have come home. But I actually ended up spending 5 days in the hospital. In that time, I saw multiple doctors, had several tests done, and to my surprise, not one person could actually tell me what was wrong with me. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow. The one thing that they did say to me was that my inflammation markers were really high. But to be honest, not one doctor was actually concerned about that. They just sort of said, oh, that's quite typical when you've got a virus. So they basically ended up sending me home and I did get better within the couple of months after that, but I ended up from that experiencing even more burnout and developed an autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis.
Mm.
But the thing for me is when I was laying in that hospital bed, the biggest eye opener for me at the time was I have to figure this out myself. No one is going to help me figure this out. I did know this is burnout. I am absolutely burnt out. And it was also a huge sign from the universe for me saying, if you don't take care of yourself, something bad is going to happen. And another thing as well that it really taught me was that actually I should never, ever feel selfish or guilty for prioritizing my health, because putting my kids first or putting their needs in front of my own 100% of the time, again, backfired on me. And I was in a situation where I was laying in this hospital bed away from my kids. I couldn't be there for them. And it was just sort of this eye opener for me to realize, okay, hold on. You have to prioritize you. And then that in turn has a flow on effect towards your kids, because when you're healthy, it means you can actually be there for your kids. So that triggered me to focus on nutrition. And it's actually when I enrolled into my nutrition studies. I learnt the power of food. I healed my gut. I rebalanced my hormones. I reduced the inflammation in my body. And before I knew it, I was just living a completely different life. It was incredible just the impact that nutrition and lifestyle had on me. And after that, I just knew I had to share it. I had to share this with other mums, and that's how Nourish Us came to life and Nourish Us was born. And we're about almost 5 years in now, and I feel so proud to be where I am today and to be able to support as many mums as I can, just with understanding that there are so many things they can do to support their health from a nutrition and lifestyle perspective.
Yeah, wow. I feel like I need to take a breath after listening to that long list of symptoms and discomforts you had. And yeah, it's unfortunately and sadly, it's not uncommon though, is it? It's not an uncommon story that women are entering motherhood not really thinking of the impact it's going to have on their own bodies and well-being. And motherhood by nature is busy, chaotic, even it's physically and emotionally, depleting. And I think that mothers tend to lose connection with themselves and their own needs, like
Yes,
you did, simply because it's sort of like we hand over our own, personal well-being hat and we put on the motherhood hat, and that's it. Our needs become the bottom of the list. And I think also listening to your story, what's even more frustrating is when there are health issues and you're trying to seek answers, often solutions are not met. And then it becomes just another thing that mothers have to, spend time and energy on, is trying to work out what's wrong and trying to find out what to do with this, how to approach it.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's really a common story, but it's not a good story, and we're here to flip that, aren't we?
Definitely. Yeah.
You experience a number of symptoms to help you to come to the conclusion that you were in exhaustion, but actually in burnout. I know there'll be a lot of mothers that resonate with a lot of those symptoms, but maybe you're thinking, oh, but I didn't have that. I wasn't to the extent of Anna. So can you tell us maybe what is burnout so that a mother that is in burnout can actually recognize that in herself?
Definitely. And I think I just want to also step back a bit from that as well. And I think one of the reasons that mums don't realize that they're in burnout mode is because society over the years has made us believe that all of these symptoms are just normal parts of motherhood. And that's what we need to change first, because yes, motherhood is inevitably going to feel overwhelming, exhausting, and we definitely need to acknowledge that. And that tends to come with a bit of those early months and years of motherhood. But at the end of the day, feeling those symptoms all the time is
Mm.
not normal. And we have to acknowledge that. And I think the biggest issue here is that society, again, has made us believe that these symptoms are normal. And when a mum is experiencing those symptoms, it's just sort of shaken off, or, they're just pretty much told that, yeah, that's just normal because you're a mum now. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves, and that's something that I really wanna change in society and really pave the way for this new version of motherhood where we are given, approval to support these needs, and society doesn't make us feel selfish for it. So
That's
that's really important. But again, those symptoms of burnout do include, the extreme fatigue, but then trouble sleeping at night. So insomnia during the night, overwhelm, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, brain fog. This is one that I hear time and time again just get completely misinterpreted as just part of mum life, the brain fog. And again, yes, it's inevitable to happen, in those early stages, but if you're still experiencing this and it's every single day, well, no, it's not normal. And we have to acknowledge that. And then you've got, your things like skin problems, hair loss. Then you go into the weight fluctuations. A lot of mums struggle with intense weight up and down. Then you've got gut issues, a lot of bloating, discomfort, hormonal imbalances, menstrual cycle imbalances. And then you go into your more serious diseases, which is the high inflammation, which can cause a lot of the autoimmune disease, is what we're seeing at the moment as well. And the rates of autoimmune disease in women, in particular mums, is skyrocketing. And I'm not a doctor, but I do truly believe a lot of that stems from these phases of burnout. And I think even though you might not be experiencing it to the level that I experienced at, I know for me that that seriousness of it came early. But if I hadn't experienced it when I did, I would have probably experienced that down the track either way. So I think remembering that, whether it's as severe as mine or not, it's all still damaging your health. It's damaging your physical health, your mental health, your hormonal health, your gut health. So yeah, just definitely acknowledging it and making sure that even though it might not be as severe, we have to accept that it's not great for our health and we don't have to live that way.
Yeah, and I think a mother just feels as though she doesn't have time to look after herself. She doesn't have time, she doesn't have headspace, it's going to come later. Oh, when their kids reach this stage, when they're at school, and it really, from personal experience of children that are adults now, perfect time never comes. The
It does
ideal time never comes, and
never.
nobody really opens up space and support for you to encourage you to look after yourself. So, yeah, it's definitely something that culturally I think we need to change. And what you've mentioned is we can have a number of those symptoms just by nature of being in postpartum or being a mother. But when they are consistent for a long period of time, or when they're not getting better, they're getting worse, that might be a time where we could start to think, okay, there's something more to this. And also recognizing that this impacts you long term. So saying I can just deal with it right now, it's just, okay, I'm tired, but that's just the way it is. It might not feel like it's affecting you, as much in the moment or in the day to day, but it compounds and it builds.
Definitely, definitely. And you don't realize that the big impact that it's having on you internally and from a physical and a mental perspective. So it's really important that we start acknowledging that.
Yeah, totally. So, how can a woman begin the process of, recovering her health, restoring her health, and even maybe thriving at some point? Where does she start? Because it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, look, I see clients at all phases of their journey in motherhood, whether they're a few months postpartum, a couple of years postpartum, and I also have many clients with teenage kids as well. They're in their perimenopausal and menopausal phase. And the one thing that I always like to say to them is, I want to just take you back to pregnancy. Let's start there, because during pregnancy, our bodies naturally go through such a vigorous process, which can cause a lot of depletion. And during pregnancy, totally normal and totally okay. And that's needed for the healthy development of our baby. But the problem tends to happen, when we leave that hospital, everybody tells us how to keep this baby alive, and keep this baby thriving, but no one tells us what we need to do in order to restore our health and replenish our body with all those depleted nutrients. And it tends to all stem from there. Omega 3s can be really depleted after pregnancy, your vitamin Ds, your vitamin A, your iron. You tend to see a lot of mums with iron deficiency, which adds to that extreme fatigue and overwhelm and exhaustion. So it's all these nutrients. And then because we're not consciously replenishing them, it just adds and it compounds and compounds. It goes towards our hormone health, it impacts our gut health, it impacts our mental health. So something that I tend to always start with is making sure that we are replenishing our body with a load of nutrition as much as possible. Something that I stand by is even when you're ready to start your health journey, never focus on counting calories, but I want you to focus on counting nutrients. As many nutrients you can add into your day as possible, and adding them from natural plant sources as well, as much as possible. So I get it, supplementation has its place, but a lot of the time, a lot of these supplements are a band-aid approach.
Mm.
So making sure that we're getting as many of our vitamins and minerals through food as possible. So rather than focusing on, how much you've eaten during that day, I want you to focus on how many nutrients you've had that day. Something I tend to do is I get to sort of the afternoon, and if I haven't had a lot of nutrients, or I feel like I haven't had a lot of nutrients, then I focus on making a really nutrient dense smoothie where I pack it with loads of antioxidants through berries and greens and things like that, just to make sure that I've hit a big vitamin and mineral count that day. I tend to do this actually every day because I know that that's one of the best ways to introduce it. Now, there are so many other things, like hormones are a real big part of our health as women, and especially as mamas, that we need to also focusing on gut health. But if we just bring it back to the basics and focus on loading our body with lots of nutrients through beautiful whole foods, that is the best place you can start, the absolute best place you can start. Again, I could go into details about exercise and things like that, but food is powerful and food is medicine, and we need to start using it that way a lot more.
Yes, so many, and I think this is another issue that's humorized, is that so many mothers are just eating the crumbs or the corners of the toast.
Exactly, the leftover scraps, and,
Whatever's
also
left, yeah.
doing it mindlessly as well, which is another
Mm.
problem. We're thinking about the bills, we're thinking about getting the kids to school, and we're just sort of shoveling food in our mouth, and, that in itself is adding to a lot of the physical, symptoms of burnout.
Yeah. So if a mother is saying, I don't have time, I've got my kids fed in the morning and then I've just got to continue with either housework or my other work, my paid work, or whatever it is, what would be like a practical approach to what they could include in that day? Say, very basic, but what sort of foods would you say would be a good breakfast, a good lunch, and a good dinner?
Yeah, okay. So I tend to focus with my clients a lot on building as many balanced plates as possible. And when I mean balanced, I don't mean portion sizes. I mean focusing on the main food group. So making sure that in as many meals as we can, ideally this would be between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Have you got a form of protein? Have you got vegetables or fruits on the plate? Have you got some form of carbohydrates? We need carbohydrates for energy. And have you got some form of healthy fats, which is going to support our hormones? So if you can focus on as many meals in your day being balanced, that is a really powerful way to kickstart the healing of the replenishment of those depleted nutrients in the body. Because when our bodies consume a balanced plate, our body reacts very differently to the way it absorbs the food. Healthy fats support when you're combining healthy fats with vegetables, for example, your body is able to absorb so many more of the nutrients in those vegetables with the healthy fat element. So making sure that even if it means that you've got to drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on your plate, it's going to go a long way in supporting the digestion of your food. So making sure we go back to protein, carbohydrates, vegetables, and healthy fats is my suggestion. Also, from a practical perspective, I'm not big on meal prep. I don't personally like spending a whole Sunday batch cooking, but something that I do like to do is make my life easier during the week with a little bit of Sunday prep. Something that I find that works really well for me is making a few overnight breakfasts. So having some form of, overnight chia pip pudding, um, things like that, or even making big frittatas, omelets that are going to help feed yourself and everyone in the morning to save some time. Something else that I love to do is I get to the end of the week and whatever veggies I've got left in my crisper, I roast them all.
Mm.
So I do a big tray of roasted veggies. I use those in breakfast when I'm, scramble them with eggs. I use them for my salads during lunchtime, and I use them as sides during dinner. I find that has really helped me over the years, and I know my clients love doing that. But again, just making sure that we're not overcomplicating it as well. You don't need a super fancy meal. It doesn't have to look like what those healthy meals look like on Instagram. Just going back to the basics of, again, I know I keep saying this, but it's so important, making sure that we're balancing our plate with those four important food groups, because the way our body is going to digest our food that way is going to be so much more effective in supporting our health and replenishing those nutrients in our body.
Yeah, and it's not overly complicated if we make these things a daily habit. So it could just be that we're not in a practice of thinking about, what can I eat today that will put, a range of things in my diet that gives me a balanced meal. So I'm thinking, even with the toast, popping a fried egg, a little bit of avocado on the side, and a piece of fruit. You are getting most of those things that you've mentioned.
Exactly. That's a perfectly balanced meal. 2 to 3 boiled eggs is actually your protein need. So you want to be aiming for that 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. You're not going to meet that with every meal. I personally don't, and I top up with protein powder. But even just aiming for 20 grams of protein per meal, you're reaching that with 3 eggs or 2 to 3 boiled eggs, depending on how big they are. So just focusing on that protein element, a carbohydrate, which is your toast, and a healthy fat, which is your avocado, it goes such a long way.
Yeah. I think you've actually got a couple of hacks and things on your socials that I've noticed where you use collagen, you use, um, bone broth powder, and I forget the other one. Is it liver? Liver powder?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
definitely,
if
yeah,
that's kind of something, like, foreign to a lot of people, can you explain just how they can find those things and what they can do for them?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm all about hacking and
Mm,
biohacking and health as much as possible. Something that I do tend to say is, if you're at the beginning of your journey, don't focus so much on this stuff. Some people come to me and say, "Oh, what collagen powder should I drink? Or
mhm.
what greens powder should I drink?" And I actually find that they're just not even drinking enough water. So, at the beginning of your journey, you really want to focus on drinking more water and getting your nutrients through simple whole foods. And then adding in those boosted extras can be really, really powerful when your body is ready for it. Beef organs powder is definitely one of my favorite hacks for mums, in particular, with when it comes to iron absorption. Beef organs are one of the most nutrient dense foods on our planet. So having some form of liver or beef organs powder is really powerful in supporting iron needs in mums. They're also full of those beautiful B vitamins, magnesium. It's a really great way to boost our health from a nutrient perspective. I personally love the Cell Squared brand, so I use that one. Collagen powder is great, but again, I think it's something that we should look at as an addition to our health. And there's so many out there, and there's
Mm.
also so many that are a waste of your money as well. So finding the right ones can be tricky. Um, I personally love, there's a couple that I would use. The Kissed Earth brand is great. They've got a really good quality bovine and marine collagen. If we go into specifics, I personally love bovine collagen. I find that it's great for our gut. It's not just only great for our skin and hair, but it's also great for our gut health, our joints, our muscles. So I personally go for bovine over marine. Cell Squared also do a great bovine collagen, and it's something that you can also add into the children's diet as well, which can be really beneficial for them. And again, collagen does boost your protein intake, which again, I'm all about boosting protein. I think it's so important for mums.
Yeah, it gives them more longevity in their day too, doesn't it? And maybe can just help kind of balance out that afternoon drop that we often have, that, that
Yes.
3 p.m. sort of fall.
Yes,
Some of the things that are why it's important to include those in our day.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So what we're talking about really is self-care, would you say? And I kind of have a little bit of resistance to that word because I feel like it implies that it's just another thing that a mother, needs to add to her list, and that she's the one responsible for including her self-care. So I feel like self-kindness, self-compassion, those sort of words sort of feel more aligned because it talks more about the feelings that she wants to give to her worth and her value in looking after herself and the needs that she has. So, what is the message that you'd like to send mothers about whether they're talking about it in self care, because that is a bit of a buzzword that everybody is familiar
Yeah,
with?
yeah, yeah.
Um, what are your 5 non-negotiable health practices that you do and feel like it makes a big difference for you?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of self-care, I think definitely that word has been misinterpreted a lot, and there can be a lot of, negativity associated to it. But I think this also goes back to the fact that society has made us believe that we need to feel like crap when we're a mum, or it's okay to feel like crap, or it's normal to feel crappy when you're a mum because that's just part of motherhood. And I think that generally stems from there. And that's why that word can be really triggering to a lot of mums. And I think just remembering as well, and although I want self-care to be about the mother alone, or taking care of her, it needs to be about her. I tend to find that something that resonates with mums more because they're in that, the motherhood and children are their priority, is something that I like to say is never ever feel selfish for taking care of you, because when you take care of you, everyone around you wins. I know that when I go for my walks or my jogs or I do my exercise, I come back such a better version of myself. I'm more patient with the kids. I'm kinder. I'm softer. More of a gentle, you know, person, and I'm just calmer in general. I can live in the present moment with them, and that's what counts. It's not about the amount of time that you spend with them, it's the quality of time that you spend with them and how you are. Your energy is something that your children feed off so much. So sometimes I find that looking at it that way can motivate mums a bit more, making sure that, remembering that, your health has a flow on effect towards
Yeah.
your family. As a mama, you are the heart of the home. Health starts with you. What you do is the way your family is going to live and act, and it's what's going to become their world. So remembering that, even though you don't want to do it, always do it for them, having that as your why can be really powerful as a mum. So I'd really just want to say that first. But some of my 5 non-negotiables probably would be, my one would definitely be my morning routine. I am really big on morning routine. I spoke about this a little bit on Instagram yesterday, because I do find that your morning routine is everything. The way your morning goes is the way the rest of your day is going to play out. So focusing on that really early on in your health journey can be really powerful. But for example, some things in my morning routine is I make sure I always have a big glass of water. This is going to support my hormones, cortisol levels, making sure that I always rehydrate my body in the morning with water and not coffee. We don't want to be, always hydrate before you caffeinate. That's something that I always always like to say. Sunlight on my face as much as possible. This is a really good hack for mums. Going outside within the first 30 minutes of waking and sitting in the direct sunlight on your face, on your body. This is going to really help drop those cortisol levels and boost serotonin and dopamine, which are your feel-good hormones. So it's a really good way to regulate your nervous system first thing in the morning. It's also great for your circadian rhythm, which is a bigger topic and subject, but it's going to help you with your sleep later on that night. And I tend to find that I need to move my body in some way in the morning. Something that I do is I always leave my mat out on the floor in the living room. And even if I might not have time for a workout, I'll always stretch my body in some way, do a little bit of breath work. I don't let the kids deter me. I get them involved. My kids know, when I'm meditating, they come along, they sit next to me, or they go and do their own thing. It's about what becomes familiar in their world. If they see you doing it all the time, they'll give you the space to do it, and they'll get involved, which is also really important as well. That sort of brings me to my second one. So that's my morning routine. Meditating for me is huge. Meditation has been one of the most powerful things in my journey. I always say to a lot of the mums that I work with, I can give you all the meal plans and nutrition advice, but mindset is 80% of the work. Mindset is what's going to determine whether you sink or swim in your journey with health. And meditating has been really powerful for me. I think a lot of people can misinterpret meditating and think that, oh, I've got to put aside all this time and it's got to be in a quiet room and no one can disturb me, and it's got to be in this peaceful space. But it's not true. The intention to meditate is more powerful than how successful the meditation is. Your intention to take those 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes for yourself, that's what counts the most. And it's not about, I think people think that meditating is about, not having any thoughts and all of that. It's not. It's about making sure that we can sit still with ourselves, and anything that arises, we can let go of or put it aside for later. And training your brain to do that can be really powerful. So meditating is probably number 2. I meditate every day, whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever I can get in. I think I touched on this before, but something that I focus on every day for nutrients is my loaded smoothie. Um, this is my way of packing in beautiful antioxidants, anti-inflammatory properties. I tend to go for berries. Berries are one of my personal favorite superfoods, especially blueberries. Again, they're loaded with vitamin C and antioxidants, which can be really powerful for our health as mums, are great for our immunity, our gut health, reducing inflammation in the body. People that follow me probably know another one is my matcha. So matcha over the years has been a game changer for me and supporting me throughout the day. I'm not about taking coffee out of your life. If you enjoy coffee, that's totally fine. But my personal recommendation is always just have one coffee a day and replace anything else with a matcha, because it's going to give you that beautiful, sustained form of energy, unlike coffee, which tends to give you a crash. We don't want that as mamas. So I find that having a matcha just after lunchtime is a really powerful way to boost my energy in a healthy way, to prepare me for an afternoon with kids, which can get crazy. Again, loaded with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties, which can really support our health as mums. And then I think for me, it's my night routine. I'm really big again on my night routine, making sure that I'm going to bed early, trying to get those 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I think those are sort of my non-negotiables. One that I think I don't know. I mean, I do this every day. It's expressing gratitude as well. And I think people underestimate how powerful this is for your health from a physical and a mental perspective. This tends to be more part of my morning routine, but I won't get out of bed until I have said to myself 3 things that I'm grateful for. I would love to tell you that I write this down in a journal, but again, realistically, that does not always happen as a mum. But I know that I'll get it done if I don't let myself get out of bed without saying doing those 3 things that I'm grateful for, this can change the whole projection of your day. Just saying out loud 3 things that you're grateful for, I think is again another really powerful health tool. Sorry, I think I went over
No,
5.
that's amazing and such a generous share. I took a few things away from that too, and they're they might seem like a lot of things, but in and of themselves, they're quite simple.
And yeah, exactly. And if you actually think about a lot of them are free.
Yeah,
A lot of them are
even
free.
and you don't even have to leave the home.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm definitely I've had you in my ear many mornings now to have the water with the squeeze of lemon
Yes.
first before I have my coffee.
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
It's
'cause
a
it's
really powerful way to reduce cortisol. When
mm,
we wake up in the mornings, our cortisol levels are generally at their highest. So you tend to find yourself mid-morning, really overwhelmed, anxious, living in that fight or flight state. And
mm,
that's generally because you've woken up with really high cortisol levels and all you've done is just increase them. So making the one of the most powerful things you can do in the morning is to reduce your cortisol levels before you start the day. Your whole day will go differently.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna try and make a habit of that because, yeah, I love that it can set you up for your day, and it's we don't have to do all of those things. We don't have to now go, "Oh, Anna told me so many things, and now I'm very overwhelmed because I really don't think I'm gonna be able to do it." But we've also got to recognize the season that we're in mothering. You know, you
Definitely.
and I have children that well, you more s me more so, that is children that aren't as dependent on us. So I can potentially fit all of those things in. But a mama that's got a small baby and maybe a toddler, she's probably not realistically going to be able to do all of those things. But even if she did one or two of those things, it's going to have big impact. And
Definitely.
just got to change that mindset of not having enough time. Um, because time won't fall in our laps. It is something we need to buy out from something else, whether that's housework or whether that's, going to the park that day or spending the day out. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay to say no, and I just want to have a restful day today.
Yeah. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you are your biggest advocate.
Yes.
No one can make that time for you. And as much as that can be a little bit hard to swallow, you have to make that time for yourself. You've got to advocate for yourself. You've got to be okay to ask for help. My husband knows, I if I'm doing a workout or if I'm going to go for one of my runs or whatever, he knows that he needs to be available at that time. I make sure he knows. And
Mm.
that's what we got to remember. We can't be afraid to ask for help and advocate for ourselves. No one can make that time for us but ourselves. And no one's going to come up and say to you, okay, I'm going to give you an hour to do whatever you want for your own, for yourself. You've got to make that time. And as
Yeah.
hard as that can sometimes be to swallow, it is the truth. And no, everybody's going to be at different phases and stages of their motherhood journey. These 5 habits that I just spoke to, I probably went up to 7 or 8. These things have been forming over the years for me. It's not something that I've just woken up and said, okay, I'm going to do all of this stuff for my health today. These are generally my non-negotiables now in my journey in motherhood, which is, quite far on. But in saying that, I think so what I tend to see in a lot of mamas is they take that all or nothing approach,
Yes.
which is really damaging. And they sort of go, okay, well, I'm in this phase now where my kids are too little and I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to wait. And then they get to a point where they're like, okay, well, I'm ready. So tomorrow I'm going to sign up to a gym, go on a diet, start counting calories, buy all these supplements, drink some green powder, add in some collagen.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. And that approach, that's the approach that tends to, fall off the bandwagon within a couple of weeks or months. And before you know it, you're in a worse position than before you started. So I think my advice to a lot of my clients is always focus on one thing and don't underestimate the small habits, because the small habits are ones that compound and they're the ones over time that make the biggest difference. So things like, okay, for this week, I'm going to focus on drinking more water.
Yes.
and making sure that you are really focusing on that. So putting a glass of water on your bedside table, and you don't go downstairs until you drink that. Getting a bottle with a water tracker, setting alarms on your phone. That in itself is so powerful. Sometimes I see a lot of mums and they tend to hit this real big slump throughout the day and around 3 p.m. And a lot of that is actually put down to dehydration. They're not drinking enough water. Their bodies are so dehydrated and they become really fatigued. So simply drinking enough water is really powerful, or even focusing, okay, on the next week, I'm going to focus on going to bed earlier. So, each night, 15-minute intervals, focusing on rewinding that bedtime. Things like that, those are the things that count. Not your collagen powder, not your greens
Yeah.
powder. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the things that compound and make the biggest difference over time. And those are the things that are sustainable, they're
Yeah.
realistic, and they're the ones that form that real healthy lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So implementation, consistency, and being kind to yourself and realizing that if you miss a day, that's okay. You can pick up the next day. Um,
Definitely.
one thing I found that mother's telling me that's been useful is to put little post-it notes around the house.
Yeah.
Whether if they're working on water, then where they get their water or their filter, then just putting a little post-it note there. And every time they go to the sink, they'll recognize that and think, okay, yep, that's my prompt. That's my cue. Uh,
Little things like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think you've mentioned so many things that if a mother is struggling, was my next question, and I'm thinking you've probably answered that. So if a mother is struggling in their current season and they're feeling, maybe their situation is hopeless, they could be a single mum and they don't have a lot of support. What would you say to a mum who's feeling that way?
Yeah, I think definitely giving yourself the grace first is really important, and remembering that every phase that every struggle that we're in is a phase, and it's something that we can definitely grow out of, but also just honoring the phase that you're in, because who you are today is not going to be the person that you're going to be in 3 months time, 6 months time, 12 months time. And just again, I think the thing that I've touched on this, but reiterating that don't underestimate the small habits that can support you. The little things that you can do every single day, implementing some form of gratitude, just to see the brighter things in life, and remember, that, there is still things that we can be grateful for, because that can really change your perspective, and perspective is everything. And, again, going back to implementing those really small things that, compound over time, and making sure that we do it slowly, because slowly doesn't mean that it's not going to stick. I think that
Mm.
the more you give yourself grace, the slower you go as a mama, the more powerful and sustainable that health journey can be.
Yeah, slowly is not a reflective of your progress.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
beautiful words. Yeah, I've really loved this conversation with you, Anna, because you make it so practical and so actionable for mothers at various stages of their life, and we're all in this together. So it's nice to be able to hear from you, a mother, that others can relate to, and that we want to support women supporting women, mothers supporting mothers, which I always sort of use as a bit of a tagline.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it's
I
so
love that.
important. We really need to be each other's cheerleaders as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have any programs running at the moment? Because I know you do some lovely things.
Yeah, I do have my signature program, which is the 4-week Busy Mama Reset, where we focus on 4 pillars of health, which is nutrition, hormones, gut health, and lifestyle. We've actually just not long ago finished the last round of that. So the doors are currently closed, but will be reopening soon. But it's an exciting time because I am launching something new, which is going to come out in the next few days. It's something that I've listened to you guys. I think a lot of my audience asked for this, and I've created it, but in an even better way, I think. So I'm really excited to get it out there, and have this as something that can also support mums in in probably a bit of a smaller capacity to the 4-week reset. But it's something that they can use, especially if they are in this phase where they are so burnt out, so overwhelmed, but they have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
That's what this is going to be really helpful for. And I can't wait to get it out and, give it to all the mums that I can get it to.
How exciting. Yeah, I think I'll jump on too. I feel like what you're about to offer is like a nice warm hug.
Exactly, and that's and
Yeah.
that's really what I wanna be able to offer. I always say to my clients that are in the 4-week reset, they're from a lot of them are from Australia and some from overseas. I always just wish, "Oh, I wish we could all just be in a room together," because the power of our energy together as mums is so powerful, and I think a lot of the support comes from bringing ourselves together, and together we can pave that way for a new version of motherhood and a version where we get to thrive too alongside our family. And I think that's really important. And that's what I'm about. And, bringing everyone together in that space is so important.
Yeah, it definitely is such a powerful place when women get together and support one another and try to break down some of these myths and misconceptions and cultural expectations about who we're supposed to be. And, we are told what it means to be a good mother. And, the more that we can get together and really, talk about actually what makes a good mother.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
is, individual from person to person, but certainly putting ourselves on that list is one way that we can push back on the societal and cultural pressures that we have. And yeah, that's going to be such a beautiful thing for us individually, but also collectively, I think.
Definitely, definitely, because together we are so much more powerful.
We're a
So
scary, powerful entity when we get together.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm so grateful that you could come on today. I've really enjoyed this conversation because it has felt so nurturing and so, authentic. And I know I've met you before, I've been with you. It truly is who you are and what you embody. So I encourage the mums to look on your Instagram page and your website, and we'll have the details to these upcoming courses as well in the show notes because what you give feels so I was saying to you before we press the record button is that I just love seeing the beauty of the foods that you share and your lifestyle and and it truly does make me want to elevate my own health and well-being. So thank you for sharing all your beautiful wisdom and we look forward to seeing what you've got to offer.
Oh, thank you so much, Katura. I honestly feel so honored and blessed to be able to have these chats with you. And, like I always say, if I can even make the slightest difference to a mama's world, I know that, my job is done and I'm on the right path. And, I'm all about the positive encouragement and, making sure that we step outside of our comfort zone in a graceful way towards ourselves and finding that balance is so important. And I know that that's what you're all about as well. And, giving this podcast out is, just such a great way for mums to be able to tune in and take as much advice from these kinds of episodes as possible. So, thank you to you as well, for offering this to mums. It's such a, it takes up a lot of time and it's hard work. So, it's amazing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we're both on the right path.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's truly our words and our knowledge and, what we've experienced as individual mothers, but also in our work with mothers is a gift. So, of course, we want to share that.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it offered something helpful to your own mothering experience. If you are a pregnant woman or know someone who is, head over to my website to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and contact list. And if you'd like to be better prepared for your postpartum, both practically and mentally, purchase the Peaceful Postpartum ebook, a 52-page interactive guide on what you need to know and what matters most in postpartum. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast, and we'll see you next time.